Today we're going to talk about slope. This is the paper you should have, and what you're going to do with it is you're going to fold it so that you can still see those keywords down there at the bottom that are referring to rate of change, ratio, and ratio again, and then steepness of a line. I know that you've seen slope a billion times since you were in middle school, and we've even seen it once already this year, but we are going to make sure and address it one more time. There are some people who still need to take the STAR test for Algebra 1, and others of you that don't, but everybody is still going to need to know slope very well for Algebra 2. So I figured I'd take a little bit of time to help explain that and make it a little bit more in depth for some of you who might be struggling a little bit with it. We're going to start with slope from a graph. To find slope from a graph, you're going to do a rate of change, okay? So if you open it up to the inside, it tells you that slope is just rise over run. And I would say the rise is the y's and the run is the x's. So if I'm talking about the rise of this graph, let me zoom out I guess a little bit, over the run of this graph, we're going to put a dot at what we call pretty points. So do y'all remember last year, your teacher may or may not have used this phrase, but pretty points are the points where they touch the corners of each of these grid lines, okay? These are all pretty points, these ones that touch the corners. So like this point right here, this would be a pretty point because it's touching the corners of grids. And then another pretty point might be right here, okay? Now, this is not a pretty point because it's not touching the corners. So you see how it's in between the top and the bottom of this grid right here? So that's not a pretty point. Once you make your pretty point, you're going to draw a line across and a line up and down, okay? I'm not going to do any like crazy diagonal lines. They're only going to be left and right and up and down lines. And then you're going to say this line rises 1, 2, 3, and it runs 2. Okay? So rise over run means this line is the slope of 3 rise and 2 run. So m equals 3 over 2. I don't know who decided to pick m for slope, but you know, maybe m stands for mountain in somebody's head, but that's what the letter m represents for you guys. If I'm talking about a positive slope, our lines are going to go like this across the page. If I'm talking about a negative slope, that means that somebody could ski down the hill. Zero slope, that's across like this. And then undefined slope, that's the one that's up and down. Okay? And I know you guys watch Slope Dude, The Adventures of Slope Dude. This is puff puff positive, nice negative. This is zero fun and undefined. Okay? So all you do is find your slope and then decide which one of these different situations you have. Put a negative or a positive if you need to. This graph has a positive slope because if I put Slope Dude at the beginning of the graph, he would have to walk up the graph. Okay? Alright. The next one is finding slope from tables. So when you find slope from a table, it's the same thing. It's going to be a ratio of rise over run. I can open up this flap. Now this little triangle thing right here, this means change. So this is change in y over change in x. That's what this really means. Okay, the triangle means change. That triangle part right there, that means change. Remember, the rise is the top, the rise is the y's. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to pick any 2 points on the table. You don't have to look at any of the other points, just 2 of them. So I might just pick, like, I don't like negative numbers because they confuse me, so I might just pick 2 positive numbers. So here I go, I picked 4 and 8, and so that's plus 4. It's really important that you write plus or minus. And over here it's plus 2. I don't know why I wrote it like that. Should probably put the plus before the 2. So this one is plus 2. And so if I'm going to do rise over run, where rise is the y's, or change in y over change in x, how much did the y change? So remember, y is on this side, and x is on this side, and the y changed by plus 4, and the x changed by plus 2, and when I divide that on my calculator, I get a slope of positive 2. So m equals 2. Okay. I'd like to do a different table just so that we can see what it looks like when our table has different movements. So let's make another table that looks like this. Hold on a second. Sorry, I'm not prepared. I apologize. Okay, so here's my x, here's my y. So you can make a quick table. And we're going to say 0, 3, 3, 1, 6, negative 1, and that's it. 3 points is enough. Okay, so if I'm going to find my slope, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do my change in y. So did I go up or did I go down? Well, from 1 to negative 1, I went down 2. But from 3 to 6, I went up 3. Okay? Positive 3. So when I write my slope, it's change in y over change in x. I'm going to write my negative 2 on top and my positive 3 on bottom. Okay? What does this mean? This means I just have a negative slope, negative 2/3. Okay? So that's why I say be really careful, because sometimes we might have both of them going down, and if both of these were negative, then that would be a negative over a negative, which would end up in a positive slope. Okay? Alright, the next one is a slope from ordered pairs. So remember, the y goes first and it goes on top. It's the same thing. It's change in y over change in x. Most of the time people do this formula where they go y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I prefer to put it into a table. I can show you both methods right now if you'd like. So let's look at this first method down here. So it's y, we have to label our points, right? So this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. So my formula is x1, nope, x doesn't go on top. What goes on top? Y. So my formula is y1 or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is negative 6 minus y1 is negative 3. Notice I still put my minus sign, and then I also have to put my negative 3. Then x2, which is 5, minus x1, which is 2. I'm going to type negative 6 minus negative 3 on your calculator. Okay, or you can notice that a negative turns to a positive in the middle. So this is negative 3 on top. And then 5 minus 2 is positive 3 on bottom. So this is negative 1. Okay? The other way that you could find your slope is to take these two ordered pairs and just put them into a table. So you take this first ordered pair 2, 3, and you just write 2 and negative 3. And the second ordered pair 5, negative 6, and you write 5, negative 6. So you write them like that, and then you turn it into an XY table. So split it up, and then you just, okay, this went down 3, this went up 3, this is change in y over change in x, so it's down 3 over positive 3, or just negative 1. Okay? Alright, so if I'm finding slope from an equation, it's actually very simple. The real thing that you need to notice is that the slope is only found if it says y equals. And it's always going to be before the x. Okay? But this only works when it says y equals. Okay? If it says anything else, then that's not going to work. That's not going to be your slope. Okay? So m is next to the x, but only when it says y equals. So here, if I'm looking for my slope, that yellow is not showing up so good. The slope is before the x here, so m is -2. Here the slope, m is 1/4. And in this last one, there's nothing there, it's imaginary, it's a 1. Okay? Now sometimes you're going to get some tricky problems on today's assignment, and so you might have it say y minus 3 equals 2x. How would I figure out what the slope is for that? Well, remember it only works if it says y equals, so I'm going to have to add 3 to both sides. So y equals 2x plus 3, and then now it says y equals, so now I can trust that my slope is 2. Okay. And sometimes it might say y plus 2x equals 8. Well, that does not say y equals. If I wanted to say y equals, first I got to move my 2x, so I'm going to do that by subtracting. And I have to move my 2x because it doesn't say y. Now it says 8 minus 2x, and so now I know my slope can be -2. Okay? So, the big thing for the last one is that it has to say y equals. Alright, please glue this into your notes on page 36.